The transport shuttle locked into Helios Station with a deep metallic thud, the kind that vibrated up the bones and left a faint tremor in the air. Lyra Hale stayed seated until the hatch cycled open, exhaling only when the artificial atmosphere stabilized. She stepped out into the cadet concourse, a wide hexagonal corridor of brushed steel and glimmering hollow panels that pulsed with soft blue light. Dozens of alien cadets turned as she walked past, some subtle, others openly staring. "Is that a human?" someone whispered near the docking ramp. "A Deathworlder. They actually sent one." Lyra didn't react. She didn't break stride. She kept her gaze straight ahead, counting each breath, letting the whispers roll past like background hum. Humans were rare in the Alliance training corps. One human cadet was practically a rumor made flesh. She reached the orientation hall where recruits gathered beneath a towering display of rotating planetary insignias. Helios Station stretched around them in a ring-like maze, but this hall stood in the central spine, a place designed to impress, overwhelm, and intimidate. Glass panels revealed deep space, streaked with the scarlet glow of a nearby nebula. The air smelled faintly metallic, tinged with ozone. Lyra stood at attention as the senior instructor entered. Commander Vorth Krail arrived with a presence that stiffened every spine. Broad-shouldered, armor-scaled, and towering even among the taller species, he walked with perfect, predatory control. His Atranian physiology carried the dense musculature of a high-gravity world, and he moved like a man accustomed to having a room yield before he spoke. His eyes fell on Lyra. "A human," he said, not bothering to hide the distaste. "I was informed one would be joining the intake. I admit, I expected, taller." A few cadets snickered. Lyra didn't blink. Vorth paced before them. "Let us begin. I am responsible for your combat readiness. You will either meet Alliance standards or wash out. Some of you will break. Some will quit. Most will be forgettable." He stopped directly in front of Lyra. "And one of you," he continued, voice cool, "does not belong here at all." The hall went quiet. Behind her, someone muttered, "This is going to be good." Lyra held her posture. "Sir, I am here under full qualification. My exam scores are irrelevant. Earth's biology gives you unfair physical tolerances and equally dangerous behavioral flaws. Deathworld instincts. Reflexive aggression. Impulse-driven thinking. Primitive adaptations mistaken for strength." Lyra kept her tone level. "I'll perform to the standards required." Vorth studied her, expression unreadable. "We'll see." The first training zone was a spherical chamber known as the Zero-G Combat Pit. Its walls were layered with magnetic rails and floating platforms, designed to simulate rotational drift. Lyra stood with 40 cadets on a circular ledge as a voice announced, "Gravity nullification in 3, 2, 1. The floor vanished beneath their feet. Cadets pushed off in practiced movements, drifting smoothly toward their positions. Lyra felt her stomach lurch but swallowed the sensation, adjusting her limbs to counter the spin. She had trained for this, long nights spent in Earth's rotation shells, yet this chamber felt different, less forgiving. A pair of reptilian trainees drifted toward her with synchronized precision. "Human," one said. "Let's see if you can keep up." Lyra assessed the angle, rotated her body, and braced. When they lunged, she pushed off a rail with controlled force, twisting sideways. One sailed past her shoulder. The other managed to hook her arm but failed to anticipate her response. She used his own momentum, pivoting and sending him spinning gently into a padded wall. Gasps echoed. Someone else kicked off a platform to intercept her. Lyra caught his wrist mid-flight, redirected the vector, and released. The movement was fluid, nearly effortless, not strength, but timing. Commander Vorth watched from a hovering observation pod. "Adaptive," he muttered. "As expected." Lyra ignored the looks from other cadets, the mix of annoyance and awe. This wasn't a victory. It was the warm-up. Vorth activated the next sequence without warning. "Enough. Return to the deck." When gravity re-engaged, several cadets stumbled. Lyra bent her knees and landed with quiet stability. Vortha's tone sharpened. Our next module will determine your real capabilities. The gravity gauntlet chamber stretched like a long metallic throat. Rows of reinforced plates lined the floor, each capable of generating crushing force. Cadets strapped into stabilizing harnesses while monitors displayed their physiological stats. Vorth stood beside the controls. This test escalates through gravity intensities common across Alliance species. Most of you will tap out between 4 and 6 times standard gravity. His attention cut to Lyra. Deathworlders claim to endure more. Let us measure truth. Lyra stepped onto her designated pad. The metal was cold beneath her boots. The chamber hummed. 1.5 G. 2 G. Bodies stiffened around her, a few cadets adjusted their stances, muscles straining. 4 G. The first trainees tapped out, shoulders sagging as their harnesses disengaged. Lyra breathed slowly, focusing on posture, letting the sensation settle. Pressure crawled down her spine, but she stayed upright, jaw relaxed. Vorth increased power. 6 G. More cadets dropped, groaning as supports lowered them gently. Lyra's ribs compressed, but she stabilized her stance. Earth's harsh training drills had forced her through higher loads, though never this smoothly controlled, or this publicly watched. Vortha's gaze narrowed. Human resilience. Predictable but unimpressive. He raised the dial. 8 G. Lyra bent slightly, forcing her legs to hold. Her pulse spiked. Air felt thick. The room dimmed for a moment. A whisper spread through the remaining cadets. She's still standing? That should be impossible. No way a soft-skinned species endures that. Lyra didn't look at them. She looked only at Vorth. The commander tilted his head. Your limit approaches. Lyra spoke through tight breath. Not yet. Vortha's expression cooled. He touched the controls again. 12 G. The force hit like a collapsing building. Lyra's knees slammed into the metal before she could stop them. Her palms struck the floor next, elbows shuddering violently. Pain exploded along her ribs. Vision flickered. The chamber shook faintly under the new strain. Monitors blared warnings. Commander, an assistant shouted, this exceeds safety protocols. Vorth ignored him. Observe. The human endurance myth collapses under real pressure. Lyra tried to move. Her muscles responded an instant too slow, like pushing through wet sand. Every heartbeat pressed harder. Her arms trembled uncontrollably. The assistant stepped forward again. Sir, we need to cut the power. Hold, Vorth snapped. Lyra tasted metal as her breath thinned. Darkness crept into the edges of her sight. But somewhere beneath the crushing weight, a memory surfaced. Her mother's voice. Pain is not the enemy. Fear is. Her father's voice. One more stand. Always one more. Her fingers twitched. A small motion, barely a defiance, but real. Cadets gasped. She moved. She shouldn't. No one should. Vorth leaned forward, eyes sharp. End of test. Lyra collapsed fully as the gravity cut out. The floor felt distant and unreal, her limbs heavy but her mind locked on one truth, she did not break first. She never would. And for the first time, Commander Vorth looked unsure. The morning sky over the orbital command stations of Earth shimmered with a strange luminescence, not from the rising sun, but from the charge of anticipation. Commander Lyra Hale stood at the forefront, her eyes scanning the hologrid that displayed every council vessel still moving toward the planet. Every pulse of energy, every trajectory, was mapped, calculated, and countered. Status report, she said, voice calm yet sharp, cutting through the controlled chaos of the operations room. Lieutenant Rami Javid responded, fleet fully prepped. Cloaked interceptors in position around key council nodes. Orbital railguns charged. E-impulse arrays online. All units synchronized, Commander. Arya allowed herself the briefest nod. Then we strike. Timing is everything. Humanity's survival depends on precision and unpredictability, our advantage against their arrogance. At the outer edge of the solar system, the Council fleet shifted imperceptibly, preparing for their calculated assault. High Arbiter Selther's eyes swept the grid, confident yet uneasy. "They've learned some evasive maneuvers," he said, his tone carrying centuries of experience. "But they are still primitive. Their defenses are scattered, their fleets too small. The humans believe chaos is strategy." "Shall we crush them now, Arbiter?" asked the subordinate, elongated limbs tensing. Selther's gaze sharpened. "Patience. Let them reveal themselves. Then we extinguish their flame in a single sweep." The first strike from Earth was not explosive. It was surgical. Interceptors streaked from orbital platforms, invisible to alien sensors, threading between Council vessels like needles through fabric. The first wave disrupted navigation thrusters, sending ships careening into one another with violent precision. Direct hit on the lead cruiser. Javid reported, excitement rising in his voice. "They're disoriented." Arya's fingers danced over the console. "Good. Focus the secondary pulse on their communication arrays. Isolation will force them to make mistakes." Council vessels began to fire blindly, energy beams slicing empty space, as humans moved unpredictably around them. Railguns from Earth's orbital platforms fired in synchronized volleys, targeting weak points no one outside of humanity would consider. "Commander Kale," an officer interjected, "Council capital ships are beginning evasive patterns. They're adapting." Arya's expression remained unshaken. "Let them. Every adjustment they make is recorded. Every response teaches us their limits. Keep pushing." The first major engagement was swift and brutal. A Council cruiser attempted to flank a key orbital defense hub near the Pacific Station. Arya anticipated the maneuver. "Deploy decoys," she commanded. Clones of energy signatures appeared on sensors, mimicking the real fleet movements. The cruiser, blinded by false targets, collided with its own escorts. Collision at 120 degrees. Cruiser lost. Javid's voice rose above the chaos. Arya allowed herself a brief, grim smile. "One down. Many to go." On the command bridge of the Council flagship, Selther's multiple eyes narrowed. "Unexpected. Their timing is precise. Alert all squadrons. Adjust offensive patterns." A subordinate hesitated. "Arbiter, they anticipate almost every move. It's as if they know our strategies before we make them." Selther's voice was sharp, almost unsteady for the first time. "They are human. They adapt. This is irrelevant. Prepare for decisive strike." Back on Earth, the strategic brilliance of humanity was on full display. Orbital drones converged in swarming formations, striking and retreating before Council targeting systems could lock on. Holographic decoys and AI-driven misdirection forced alien vessels into patterns that exposed structural weaknesses. "Commander, we're intercepting their primary energy grid," Javid said. "Targeting it now could cripple their mainline weapons." Arya's eyes gleamed. "Do it. Humanity doesn't just survive, we exploit opportunity. Engage." Energy flares erupted as the first Council capital ship's mainline weapons short-circuited under the precise human assault. One by one, vessels faltered, some tumbling into the void, others forced into defensive maneuvers that left them vulnerable. In the midst of the chaos, dialogue between Arya and her officers revealed humanity's mindset: composed, analytical, and courageous. "Casualty reports?" she asked, voice steady. "Minimal," a communications officer replied. "Shields held. Interceptor loss negligible." Arya exhaled softly. "Good. Keep pressure. They still believe they control the engagement." "They don't." Selther, watching the disarray, grew increasingly frustrated. How How are they so coordinated? He demanded. They adapt, Arbiter, the subordinate said cautiously. They predict patterns, but in ways our calculations cannot match. Selther's claws tapped the console, hard. Primitive, yet formidable. Humanity is anomalous. Increase countermeasures. Target their command hub. If we destroy Kale, their entire fleet collapses. Kale, aware of the looming threat to her command center, anticipated Selther's plan. Activate orbital shield reinforcement, she ordered. Deploy shadow drones to the Council's blind zones. They'll never find our command node. As the alien vessels surged toward Earth's core defense satellites, shadow drones struck from unexpected angles, sabotaging their engines and shields. Council ships floundered, caught in a net of technological improvisation and tactical brilliance. Commander, they're retreating. Javid exclaimed. Not yet, Kale corrected. They are recalibrating. They're testing limits, probing our defenses. Let them. Every maneuver teaches us their next step. We remain unpredictable. By mid-engagement, humanity's preemptive strike had become a lesson in efficiency and ingenuity. One of the largest Council vessels, a Dreadnought-class ship, attempted to fire upon a major city. Kale predicted its firing arc, launching a series of electromagnetic pulses combined with hypervelocity projectiles. The alien ship's energy cannon short-circuited, and it spun helplessly into the void, a monument to human precision. The bridge erupted with restrained applause, tempered by the knowledge that the battle was far from over. Arya Kale remained focused. This is just the beginning. They underestimated us. Now they know humans can strike first, and strike effectively. Javid looked at her, awe-evident. Commander. I've never seen anything like this. We're not just surviving. We're dominating. Kale's gaze hardened, fierce and unwavering. We are not finished. Not until the threat is neutralized. Humanity will not just endure, we will awaken the galaxy to the fact that we are not to be underestimated. Far across the void, Selther seethed, realization dawning too late. The Council had assumed a primitive species would fold under pressure. Instead, humans had struck first, and the tide of battle had shifted irrevocably. Humanity had taken the first decisive step, a declaration in blazing arcs of light and steel. Earth would not bow, and the galaxy would soon learn that humans were a force of cunning, courage, and indomitable spirit. Vorth froze. Cadets watching from above pressed closer to the glass. The distortion expanded, rippling through the air until the pressure around her loosened, not because the gravity dropped, but because the field itself buckled away from her. The generator crackled, warning lights flashing. Rex shouted from the window, Commander, the field is destabilizing. Vorth stared at Lyra. Impossible. A pulse radiated outward from her body, soft, almost silent, yet strong enough to send a tremor through the chamber. Alarms blared. The gravity field collapsed entirely. Lyra remained standing. The metal beneath her boots fractured with a sharp snap. Cadets went silent. For the first time, Vorth said nothing at all. The alarms died slowly, replaced by the heavy hum of emergency stabilizers resetting the chamber's systems. Lyra stood in the center of the fractured plate, her breath steady but her pulse still climbing from the surge she didn't understand. The distortion had vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving only the broken metal beneath her boots, and the stunned silence of everyone watching. The door hissed open. Admiral Saris entered the chamber with the swift, precise movements of someone accustomed to authority. She was tall, silver-skinned, and sharp-eyed, dressed in the cobalt uniform of Alliance High Command. Cadets parted instinctively. Her gaze swept the room. To my office, she said. All of you. Commander Vorth stiffened, jaw clenched, but he obeyed without protest. Lyra followed as instructed, ignoring the whispers trailing behind her like ghosted echoes. Admiral Saris's office overlooked the starfield, a wide arc of transparent alloy displaying the drifting nebula surrounding Helios Station. Holographic files hovered above her desk, their data streaming in quiet patterns. She didn't sit. Cadet Hale, she began, you displayed gravitational disruption inside a stabilized field. That should not be possible for any species without augmentation. Her eyes sharpened. Were you modified? No, Lyra said. I don't know what happened. Vorth stepped forward. Admiral, the human has been defiant since arrival. She manipulated the field. Saris raised a hand. Enough. Your override commands exceeded regulation by a wide margin. If there were anomalies, they may have been triggered by your recklessness. Vorth's expression tightened, but he held his composure. Lyra spoke carefully. I didn't intend for anything to happen. The pressure built too fast. Something gave out. That's all I know. Saris studied her for a long moment. You are either extremely lucky, extremely dangerous, or both. Rek, standing near the back, clicked his mandibles nervously. Admiral, the log shows she maintained awareness under conditions that should cause neural blackout. That alone is significant. Exactly, Vorth said. Significant enough to consider human instability a threat to the program. Lyra faced him. I stood through what you threw at me. That's not instability. It is unpredictability, Vorth countered. A cadet who can cause structural failure simply by enduring is a risk to others. Saris cut in again. The tribunal will review the matter. Lyra's stomach tightened. A tribunal. That meant scrutiny, politics, and decisions made by beings who had never set foot on Earth. Until then, the Admiral added, Cadet Hale will continue training. Vorth snapped his head toward her. Admiral. With supervision, she continued. Vorth said nothing, but the slight twitch in his jaw revealed his irritation. Saris dismissed them with a gesture. Report to the arena at midday. If you are to remain here, your place must be earned conclusively. Lyra understood the subtext. This would not be a routine drill. This was an evaluation, one final test, disguised as training. She left the office with Rek trailing behind. You should prepare, he said. Commander Vorth looks unsettled. Lyra gave a faint exhale that could almost be a laugh. Good. The Grav Arena was a vast, circular hall with tiered platforms rising toward the ceiling. When Lyra arrived, dozens of cadets had already gathered, whispering as she walked across the polished floor. Vorth stood alone in the center, waiting. Cadet Hale, he said, voice carrying across the space. You have challenged this institution's expectations. Today, you will demonstrate your capability clearly, through direct combat. Lyra's heartbeat slowed to a controlled rhythm. Against whom? Against me. A ripple moved through the watching cadets. Rek stepped forward. Commander, she is still recovering. This is not open for discussion, Vorth snapped. He pointed at the far end of the arena. Take your position. Lyra walked to her mark. The air felt colder here, charged with tension. Vorth removed his formal coat, revealing the dense, hardened layers of Atranian muscle beneath his uniform. His species thrived under pressure. He was built for combat, trained for decades, and twice her mass. Yet something in his stance carried urgency, almost desperation. Begin, he said. He moved first, crossing the distance with surprising speed for his size. Lyra dodged aside, feeling the rush of air as his arm sliced past her shoulder. She stepped in, struck his ribs, then retreated before he could counter. Pain shot up her knuckles, his hide was like stone, but she didn't slow. Vorth pivoted sharply and threw a punch aimed at her sternum. She caught his forearm, redirected the force, and slid beneath his guard. The movement was clean, instinctive, and sharpened by Earth's brutal training regimens. They circled each other. You rely on instinct, Vorth said. Raw survival, nothing more. Lyra steadied her breath. Instinct kept me alive. It keeps us all alive. He charged again. She sidestepped, caught his elbow, and used his momentum to pull him off center. He planted a foot and swung his weight back, aiming to pin her. Lyra dropped low, trapping his arm, and pivoted behind him. She braced her stance, twisted sharply, and locked him down in a restrained hold she had drilled since childhood. Vorth froze, not from pain, but from realization. She had him. The arena went silent. Lyra held the lock a moment longer before releasing him. She stepped back with steady posture, breathing hard but controlled. Vorth rose slowly. His pride, the thing more rigid than any gravity field, fractured just enough to show the truth. "You could have struck me unconscious," he said quietly. "I didn't need to." Something shifted in the crowd. Cadets who once doubted her now watched with a different kind of recognition. Respect. Admiral Cirrus descended from the upper platform, her boots echoing sharply. "I have seen enough." Vorth straightened. "Admiral. You pushed beyond protocol, attempted to break a cadet through personal bias, and still failed." She turned to Lyra. "Cadet Hale, you endured conditions no one should withstand. You faced deliberate hostility and answered with discipline, not retaliation. You are exactly what this Corps needs." Then, with clear authority, she announced, "Cadet Lyra Hale will remain in the Alliance Training Corps. Effective immediately, she is granted full combat track status." A wave of murmurs swept across the arena. Rex's antennae lifted in visible relief. Vorth bowed his head stiffly. "Understood, Admiral." Cirrus looked at Lyra. "You have proven you belong here more than most." Lyra nodded, breath loosening at last. "Thank you, Admiral." As the formation dismissed, Rex approached her. "What now?" he asked. Lyra glanced back at the arena, the cracked plates, the flickering lights, the crowd still talking about what they had witnessed. "Now," she said, adjusting her stance like someone ready for whatever came next. "I train." Rex's mandibles clicked in amusement. "Harder?" Lyra's slight smile answered for her. The arena lights dimmed in a slow, sweeping fade across the floor, almost as if the station itself was exhaling after a long-held breath. Helios Station felt different the next morning. The corridors hummed with their usual mechanical pulse, but the energy running through them had changed shape. Cadets stepped aside when Lyra passed, not with fear or disdain, but with a kind of measured caution, like they were recalibrating the way they perceived her. Rumors spread fast. The human who shattered gravity. The cadet who pinned Commander Vorth. The anomaly walking on two legs. Lyra ignored all of it. She headed to the training deck before first bell, muscles still aching from the duel, but her mind sharper than ever. She needed space to breathe, think, and absorb what had happened. She still didn't understand the surge that rippled through her during the high-density test. Whatever it wasn't strength. It felt more like pressure redirecting itself, like something inside her bracing against the field. She stepped into the empty arena. The cracked panel from yesterday had been sealed, but the faint outline of the fracture was still visible beneath the surface. She touched it lightly. "Trying to destroy the station again," a voice teased behind her. Lyra turned. Rex stood at the entryway, antennae tilted playfully. "I didn't destroy anything," she said. "The station just adjusted." Rex made a soft clicking laugh. That adjustment nearly cost Vorth his composure. "That alone makes you famous." "I'm not looking for fame." "I know," Rex said. "But it found you anyway." They moved to the center of the arena where low grav fields hovered in idle mode, waiting for activation. Lyra began stretching her shoulders, rotating her wrists. Rex watched. "You should rest." "I did." "Humans don't rest," he said. "You hibernate with your eyes open." Lyra smirked despite herself. Before she could respond, the arena lights shifted from soft blue to stark white. An announcement echoed. "All combat cadets report to Arena Sector 7. Immediate assembly." Rex tensed. "Sector 7? That's where they hold cross-species evaluations." Lyra frowned. "I thought those were scheduled next cycle." "They were." He paused. "This is new." Sector 7 was a vast chamber ringed with elevated seating and reinforced alloy walls thick enough to withstand artillery fire. When Lyra and Rek entered, nearly 100 cadets and 20 instructors stood in ordered rows around a central platform. Admiral Saris waited at the front. Vorth stood a few paces to her right, expression cold but composed. Saris raised her hand. Cadets, today marks the beginning of a station-wide assessment. An external threat has triggered an accelerated readiness protocol. Murmurs rolled through the room. Lyra exchanged a quick look with Rek. Saris continued, eyes scanning the assembly. 3 hours ago, our deep-range sensors detected an unidentified vessel operating beyond the nebula's outer ring. It approached without transmitting credentials. Then it vanished from scans entirely. A sharp silence followed. One cadet asked, "Stealth technology?" "Possibly," Saris said. "But we are not speculating. What matters is this: the vessel appeared again, closer, for a brief moment, and our gravity sensors fluctuated at the same time." Lyra felt a faint chill at those words. Gravity fluctuations. Rek whispered, "Like what happened in the chamber." Saris went on. "We cannot assume connection. But we must prepare for potential breach, incursion, or interference. You will undergo rapid response drills. Mixed species teams. Real stakes." She motioned toward the far doors. "Teams will be assigned now." Vorth stepped before the crowd. His voice carried clear authority. "Cadet Hale." The entire hall shifted toward her. Lyra stepped forward, jaw set. "You will lead Team Delta," Vorth said. "Your performance yesterday makes you the best suited for variable gravity scenarios." Several cadets reacted with surprise. Some nodded. Others stiffened. Rek stepped forward. "Admiral, I request placement in Team Delta as well." Saris considered him briefly. "Approved." Assignments continued. Teams formed. The atmosphere sharpened. Lyra quietly absorbed her list: 3 avian scouts, 1 aquatic strategist in a mobile suit, and Rek as her second. A strange mix, but well-balanced. Vorth approached her once the room thinned. "You will be monitored closely," he said. "Leadership is earned each moment. Do not assume yesterday secures your position." Lyra met his gaze. "I wasn't planning to." For the first time since she entered Helios Station, something unreadable flickered behind Vorth's eyes. Not hostility. Something closer to respect, or caution. Either way, he stepped back. "Prepare your team. Scenario begins in 15 minutes." Lyra gathered Delta in a small briefing room overlooking the simulation deck. Screens displayed a rotating wireframe of the nebula, marked with gravity spikes and sensor anomalies. "Listen up," she said. "Our objective is simple: identify the source of the gravitational disruption and secure a safe perimeter. If contact occurs, we disengage and report. No heroics." One avian cadet raised a winged arm. "Why you?" "You're new." Lyra answered without hesitation. "Because I have experience in unstable gravity." "You saw the logs." The avian lowered his arm. Rek stepped beside her. "Follow the plan. Cadet Hale is competent, and your cooperation is required." Lyra turned to the aquatic strategist, housed in a sleek exochassis filled with translucent fluid. "You'll monitor pressure irregularities. Gravity disruptions often radiate before they collapse." The strategist's synthesized voice buzzed softly. "Understood." She addressed the team as a whole. "Stay close. Communicate often. We don't know what we're dealing with." When they filed out, Rek lingered. "Do you think this anomaly is connected to you?" he asked quietly. Lyra hesitated. "I don't know." "But you feel something." Lyra didn't answer. She didn't need to. The simulation deck opened like an enormous amphitheater, its walls shifting to project the nebula in vivid detail. When the exercise began, the gravity pressure changed instantly. Not crushing like Vorth's test, just uneven. A light pull to the left. A sudden dip under her feet. The sensation of walking across tilted space. Her team staggered but adjusted. Lyra didn't flinch. She led them down a narrow ridge simulated from asteroid terrain. The air shimmered with faint distortion, as if a ripple moved through an invisible liquid. "Pressure spike," the strategist announced. "Direction, forward quadrant." Lyra lifted her hand. "Hold." The distortion thickened ahead, bending the projection slightly off-axis. Something pulsed behind it, not light, not sound, something deeper. The avian scout whispered, "Is that supposed to happen?" "No," Lyra said. "Stay sharp." They advanced. The ripple expanded abruptly, snapping the simulated surface into a jagged wave of warped geometry. Rex shouted, "Lyra!" A shockwave burst from the distortion. Not force, gravity. It shoved sideways, collapsing the terrain under Delta Team's feet. Lyra grabbed Rex's wrist, pulled him clear of a collapsing ridge, and rolled across a fragment of stable ground. The others steadied themselves using magnetic anchors. "Status," she called out. "All stable," the strategist responded. "But the field is resonating." Lyra stared at the distortion as it pulsed again, almost in sync with her heartbeat. Vortha's voice echoed from the observation deck overhead. "Delta, retreat immediately. The simulation cannot stabilize this anomaly." Lyra didn't move. She recognized the feeling rising in her chest, the same internal tightening from the chamber. The sensation that something external was pulling against her, mirroring her breath. Rek grabbed her arm. "Lyra, you heard him." "I know," she said. But something inside that distortion was responding to her presence. Not attacking. Reacting. She stepped forward once more. The ripple expanded, its edges brightening, not with light, but with movement. Something was in there. Something watching. The station held its breath. And Lyra felt the weight of an unseen gaze settle on her alone.